Okay, so if you've been following the channel for a little while now, you'll know that wiring is something that we do a fair bit of here in the shed. Now, to a lot of people, wiring can be really boring or really daunting or just a headache. To a degree, it is. Wiring is very monotonous and time consuming and can become very complex very, very quickly when the project gets out of hand and there's wires going everywhere. For me, I really enjoy wiring. I can't exactly tell you why, it's just something that I always have, but it has been a very, very useful skill that I have sort of developed over these years and gotten better and better at. I still have a long way to go, but I do feel like now I have somewhat of a fair understanding when it comes to wiring, and that is something that has become very, very useful and we've used a lot on this channel. Now, over the years, I've collected a lot of stuff when it comes to wiring. And the reason why that is, wiring requires a lot of supplies. Supplies being obviously the wire itself, so cable drums, your terminals, your cable ties that goes with the wiring, your conduit that goes with the wiring, all the basic supplies. Now, where do I keep all that stuff? Well, that is the problem that we're going to try to solve today, because as you can see, I have wiring stuff spread all over the place. These boxes right here, this is all the wiring and stuff that I took down to the factory when I was wiring up the XE. I never got around to putting it back in the shed because the hope was I'd put this straight into what we're going to try and build today. But as you can see, there is a lot of wiring in here, and this isn't even all that I have here in the shed. This is just what I took down to the factory to get the XE done. In this tub, it is basically full of wiring drums itself, and in this one here, it is full of Deutsch connector terminals and all my other kind of terminals that I used on the XE. 2 full boxes. On top of everything that's in those 2 boxes, I also have this trolley here. This trolley here has sort of been probably where we store most of the majority of our stuff when it comes to wiring. I don't know if I've really ever shown you guys in here, but as you can see, I have a bunch of just random crap. I try and organize as best I can, but it's not very neat. As you can see, I keep a lot of my relays and fuses up here and just other kinds of terminals and stuff that I might be using throughout different kinds of projects. This one here is just a continuation of that, so I've got a lot of terminals and stuff in here that I use. And then that continues over to here where I keep a lot of like random OEM plugs that I might cut off cars along the way. Same thing with this one here as well too. All my 12-volt wire offcuts that I keep. We don't really throw anything out because you never know when you might need to make an earth strap and you only need it to be this long. And this is where we're keeping a lot of our conduit when it comes to wiring. In our stacker that we built many years ago now, I have a lot of wiring as well too. So in this tub here, I keep all my terminals, your basic sort of Nava terminals, which we don't use too much anymore except for maybe the eyelets, a box full of switches and stuff. And in this one, we keep all of our shrink wrap as well. And then if you come on over to our old toolbox that we used to use, we keep a lot more electrical stuff. So this drawer here is basically a lot of the electrical tools that I use on the regular: wire strippers, wire crimpers, soldering irons, Deutsch connector tools, which I've been using a lot more of lately. This drawer keeps a lot of our wiring diagnostics tools, so you know, multimeters, testing wires, or whatever you want to call them. They're just basically wires with alligator clamps on either side so you can hook things up temporarily to test circuits and such. We use them a lot as well too. A test light, which is pretty much a must-have when it comes to wiring. And as you can see, it is all very much a mess. So what we're going to do today is we're going to build a one-stop shop for everything in this shed electrical wise. I want to have it all in one location and I want to have it mobile. So what we're going to build is an electrical tool cart or mobile workstation, whatever you want to call it. Something that I can store everything that I've just shown you in all these different locations around the shed in one spot. I can wheel it to the job at hand. So if I'm working on the Tirana, I can wheel it up to that, sit down next to it and have everything accessible right next to me. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. So this is a King Chrome mobile service trolley, and the reason why I like it is because it offers me 6 drawers and they are full length, but they're only 300 wide, which is awesome because in general, electronic stuff like the tooling and stuff is not really big. It's all sort of handheld stuff. It's nothing that takes up a great deal of space, but you do have a lot of it. So having smaller drawers, but a lot of them, might be a lot more useful than having big drawers and having them kind of empty. They're actually surprisingly heavy. Obviously this will come with wheels, which are usually in here. And they would look something like this. They're actually pretty cool. They've got dual wheels on the bottom of it, so they carry the weight. And they would normally just go on the bottom of this, obviously, so you can wheel this thing around. But in our case, we're not going to use it like that. We are going to build a frame, which is obviously much wider than this unit. And then this will sit on top of that frame alongside the back panel wally thing here. So, all right, let's lay it out. tote bins. This is where it's going to get messy. So looking at that, I'm pretty happy with the layout. I think that's going to look pretty good and be pretty neat. But the one thing that I have noticed is, because that set of drawers is so deep, you can imagine if I put the backing plate, which I thought I was originally going to do, at the back of the drawers, pretty much as it lays now, look how much space I have between from where the tote bins and the drums finish to the top of the cabinet here. I have maybe 200, 250 mil worth of space. But given that I have so much wasted space, what I might actually do is bring all this forward. So bring it up so it is level with the face of these drawers. That it means that I can actually keep this thing lower. Rather than having shelves underneath my drums here, like I thought I was originally going to do, what I might do is put storage for shelves behind it. That means that I can keep the overall height of this trolley lower, which is good because it means that it might fit under more benches and such rather than being quite as high, because I don't need to have that extra height in order to fit shelves underneath the drums. I can fit them behind, which is something that I hadn't really expected or planned on, but I think will work much, much better. So that is my basic layout so far. So I reckon what I need to do now is make a frame and start putting stuff on. I'm going to use 30 by 30 box section, just pretty basic sort of stuff. After a little bit of grinding, that's what my mitered ends look like. So you shouldn't see any welds, especially from the outside, just to give it a cleaner look. And I don't do a lot of mitered joins or welds because I don't like them generally. If I hadn't done it in this case, I would have had it ended up with a hole at the end of this, and it just would have looked a bit untidy. And it's a good opportunity for me to practice it. That's done now. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a couple of braces going across there like that, so that way it'll give it some strength when I put my sheet over the top of it. And just also, this will have obviously bowed, it's probably bowed in a little bit, so I'll square it up a bit. And then I can start drilling holes to put the wheels on and such, and get it mounted to the cabinet. Alright, now that I have my frame made, I'm going to stick this on top of there. So, I was getting ready to start mounting all this up. That side there is easy, because all I need to do is just put nutserts into the frame and put the wheels on, that's done. But this side here gets a little bit trickier because I need to get bolts to go through the wheels and then into the drawer unit itself. What I was originally going to try and do is just see if I can bolt down these wheels in 3 spots, but the issue is if I leave this bit with no bolt in it, it's going to want to turn like that and drop in if it hits anything. It might end up bending the wheel and then it's going to stuff the wheel. So unfortunately what I think I'm going to have to do is put another bar in across here to there, so that the wheels pick up 4 points and they're nice and solid, and I'll have to do the same on that side as well too. So let's do that, shall we? And just like that, we're back. Now my wheels have 4 points of contact, which is really what they need. So, alright, now I need to drill the holes through here to mount up to this. I'm just going to put 4 bolts that'll go all the way through. The rest will just be nutserted for the wheels. you haven't used step drills before, honestly, they're the best thing since sliced bread, I reckon. They make life so much easier. King Chrome have their own now, and honestly, they're absolute rippers. We use them all the time because they're just so much quicker than jumping up drill bit sizes. And for this sort of thing, they're absolutely perfect. Let's hope it bolts into this. Well, that feels nice and solid. I'm really happy with that. This turned out quite nice, the frame underneath. It actually is super smooth to roll around, and the size and height I'm really happy with. So now what we need to do is grab all that, turn around and sit it up across the back here. Yeah. Now I need to figure out how I'm gonna do this. Okay, let's talk about storage of wire drums. This has been something that I've been trying to figure out for a very, very long time as to the best way to store cable drums or rolls of wire. Now, for a long time, I've had all these drums in my drawers over there, and that works pretty well. Like, honestly, you can sit them all in there, and as you need it, you pull the whole roll out, feed out what you need, cut it, take it to the car, whatever you go do, and then when the job's done, put it away, back in its home in the drawer, which is fine. They usually have to be stored on their side like this, because otherwise they roll around in the drawer and they get all messy and stuff. And look, that's not the worst method, I don't mind it, but it takes up a lot of space. By the time you have them all sitting next to each other like this, and they spread all out across the drawer, you end up losing and wasting a lot of space. And I'm wasting drawers over there. The goal is, once all this electrical stuff moves out of those drawers over there, I want to put all my building supplies into there for like house renos and stuff like that. So I want it out of the drawers, which is pretty much the main reason why I'm doing this. Another system that you see a lot when it comes to wire roll storage is see it all put on a rack. Put the bar through, goes through that one goes through that one goes through that one, and you get this one, and you know, put it in a bracket somewhere, and it all sits like that, which looks really, really good. It's a really easy way of identifying your cables, you know, not only the color that they are, but also the thickness of the core itself, and is it suitable for the project that you need it for. You can unwind it, cut it to length, and take it to your project, which that works really well, and a lot of people do that, and I've considered doing that myself. But there is one downside to it. Sometimes you need to, say, get inside the car. You need to get inside the car to run something, and you need to take your drum with you or your roll with you into the car or somewhere. You need to take it out of its home and take it to the job. That's fine if you want to get this drum off and you want to take this one, but if you want to take this one, for example, you need to pull this one off, and this one off, and this one off, and then you finally get to the color that you actually wanted, go take it to the job and go use it. Now my issue with that is, it just starts to get really messy, because now all of a sudden not only do you have this roll out somewhere in the shed, but you also have these three rolls out of their home as well too, and all of a sudden it starts to get really messy very quickly. Another method you could use is if you were going to just pull the bar out and then just pull that straight up. Yep, that'll work as well too, but if there's nothing supporting them underneath, they're all just going to fall to the ground, so that doesn't really work. So the method that I'm going to try and do is I'm going to use this. A bit of 150mm PVC pipe, stormwater pipe essentially. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to cut it in half. And that means if I do cut it in half, I can then sit my rolls inside and they'll live in there. And if I need to, I can just unroll the wire on the trolley itself, cut it to length if I need it. But if I need to take a specific roll out and take it to the car or something, or take it out of the trolley itself, I can just lift it straight out, all the rest remain in their place. I don't have to reorder anything, I don't need to worry about reorganizing it when I put it back. It just goes straight back into its home when it's done. So that's what I'm going to try and do. Let's figure that out and see what that looks like. Okay, so what I'm trying to figure out here with this weird looking Pokeball drawing is, I need to figure out the heights of my two shelves. The reason being is if I have one below the other, I need to know how high up this top one needs to be in order to be able to get the bottom roll out. If these are the heights of both my shelves, yes, it sits in there nice and well and it's all great and all, but if I went to pull this one out, it's going to hit the top. I can't get it out. I need to have this shelf high enough that I can get this out and easily. So what I'm trying to do is figure out my height, and that'll then give me my total height on my shelf there. And then that can go up to there. That's when it would come out. I'm going to offset these shelves a little bit so this one sits further back than and this one a little bit further forward. The reason being is if that one is there and this is my lip right here, so this is the lip of the shelf, it's going to roll out the top like that. If I had this in line, that means my center point is closer to this one, which means it would contact. So by offsetting it back just that little bit, I actually create a little bit more of a gap in here and it'll roll out like that. So I think that'll work. 400 is what I've got. And then I need to add 550. 550 on a 400 is 950. And that adds up to being just a little bit higher than this. So 950 is there where my thumb is, which is fine. I'm happy with that height. That should give you an idea of what we're sort of looking at. So yeah, I need to take this off now, weld up that little bit there, get that all sorted, and then give it a coat of paint and let it dry overnight, and then tomorrow we'll come back and hopefully finish this thing off. There's still a fair bit more to go, but it's looking good. Okay, well, it is the next day, and last night I did manage to get the frame painted, so it looks like this. Just painted some gloss black just to sort of match the cabinet that's going next to it. Anyway, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start cutting up the backboard and everything to get a backboard put on this so we can start mounting things to it, the baseboard as well, and we'll go from there basically. I'm going to use some leftover ply that I had left over from some house renos to sheet this thing, and hopefully that works. Let's have a look. Now, if there's one thing I hate, it's grinding dust when I'm working out in this area here, because it just floats. It goes everywhere, it goes over the cars, it goes over the tools, hence why I have the dirty area in the back. But if there's one thing I hate more than grinding dust, it's sawdust. Sawdust is even worse. Sawdust goes everywhere and creates this film and stuff, and just, it's a real pain in the ass to clean. And it's really light, so it just floats. So normally I would cut sawdust outside of the shed, but it's pretty wet and rainy outside today, so unfortunately we have to do it inside the shed. Anyways, it has to be done, so now I'm going to set up the shed to cut some timber. Just look like that, and I had to just cut out a bit of a chamfer to account for the weld. It is not perfect and there's a bit of chipping, but it is what it is. Doesn't really matter for what this is. That was loud. Beautiful. Okay, well my backboard's on now and the base plate, so that's all screwed in now, looking nice. And it gives me plenty of room on the back to use as sort of a pinboard area or put shelves down the bottom. I'm not exactly sure what this back's gonna look like just yet, but I'll figure that out later on. But now what I need to do is I need to figure out my drum shelves down the bottom here. So That's what we're going to move on to now. So let's get a start and see how we're going to do that. So how am I going to do that? Well, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to use some PVC pipe. And this is said PVC pipe. So as you can see, I got a long length because I didn't know how much I was going to need. Now, there is one issue with it. This is my roll, and most of my rolls, or pretty much all the rolls of this size, are 120 millimeter in diameters. This here is about 150 mil in diameter, this pipe. I couldn't get anything anywhere closer. All I could get was smaller, and I didn't really want to get anything smaller because I didn't know if it was going to work if I went smaller. So I went bigger, and the idea is what I'm going to try and do is cut this in half, or a little bit over half, to basically end up with a half pipe section of 120 millimeter diameter. So I need to cut my length, and then I need to cut a section out to be able to bring it in smaller to actually hold these things so that they don't roll around like this inside the shelves. So I need to get this edge square here to the run of this pipe. You'll understand why later when I go to put the ends on this thing. And an easy way to do that is you get a sheet of paper. And if you run your sheet of paper all the way around like this and get your ends to line up just like that, you'll find that you end up with a nice square line to cut off. Then what I can do is run my texture along it all the way around, and when I pull this back by rights, I have a perfectly square or perpendicular line. Now I'll get the angle grinder, I'll cut all that off, cut the length, and trim my section out. Beautiful. Okay, so I'm going to use this piece of paper again actually because I realized I can use it to my advantage here. What I need to do now is I need to figure out how much material I need to take out of this section to end up with a piece of pipe, or half a piece of pipe, that is the diameter of 122 millimeters internally. So I've done a little bit of calculation stuff. What I figured out is I need to have a circumference of 200 millimeters essentially. So what I did is I've gone to my piece of paper here, I have marked out 200 millimeters from there to there, and 200 from there to there. Now I'm going to put this back around my pipe, mark it on the pipe, and follow it all the way along, so then I can draw a straight line down there to get my line nice and straight. Again, this looks a little bit overkill at the minute, but you'll understand why when I get to how I'm mounting this thing, why we're doing it, and why we're trying to be so perfect with my sizing. Line it up, put a line there, and there, and there, and there. Slide that along. Line it back up with the dots that I made before. See? Like that. And so on and so forth. Just work my way down the pipe. And if my calculations are correct, we should end up with a perfectly straight line by the end of this. One. So you've seen the pipe that I'm going to use, but you haven't seen how I'm going to mount it. So the way that I'm going to mount this pipe is something a little bit different. I thought about cutting out just out of timber a half circle, sitting the PVC inside and securing it with like brad nails or something all the way around, but I thought that's going to look a bit clunky and I reckon it would eventually close up over time. And then I realized what I could do is, remember these poker balls that I did earlier on this piece of cardboard here? If I router out all the way through this half circle here, and then I router another half circle here into timber, I can use that as framing to hold my PVC in place. So then I can slide my PVC straight through, and it'll go straight through the correct radius, which will keep the PVC in its correct shape too, hopefully, and that should maintain its shape. So that's the idea, that's what I'm going to try and do now So now I need to router out my half circles essentially. So let's see how we do. So this is a method that I've never tried before, but I've seen a lot of people do it, and the way that it's done is, because I want to drill my half moon in here, or router out my half moon here, I got to drill a hole in here to find my center point. I've just marked that out so it's the 61 millimeters away from the router bit. I'm going to sit that in there, and all I'm going to do is just work it around till we get to there, essentially. So let's see if it works. So that's what my radius would look like. Now let's find out if that fits inside. Absolutely perfectly. Have a look at that. Perfect. Nice and snug. I have my 3 pieces made. I'm going to use 3. This is my middle one because it goes all the way through. These are my 2 bookends, so don't go all the way through. So it just looks like that on the other side. This one had a big blowout when I was drilling through a hole there, but that's okay. It's going up against the wall anyway. It's going up against the unit anyway, so you shouldn't see it. But so now that I have them made, now it's time to mount them to the backboard itself and slip this PVC through and hope that it works. That actually worked really, really well. I didn't think it was going to work that good. I think we may have made something. There we go. So that's what it's going to look like. Yes, it does bow out a little bit. You can see it is opening up and spreading. If I put 4 in, it'll close it up a little bit, but it'll also make it harder to put a locking rod across the top. I can still have plenty of room to get my rolls in and out, which is what I was after. I'm gonna make a 4th one, aren't I? Alright, we'll make a 4th one. You guys say so. Fortified as it is. Have drum shells, and I'm pretty happy with them, to be honest. All the plywood and a bit chipped up and stuff, so it hasn't come out the nicest finish, but overall it is what it is. All it needs to do is work and be practical, so I'm happy enough with that. That's what we're looking like. So we have our drawers now, and we have our tote bins, and now we have our shells for our rolls of wire. It's looking pretty good. This is all just temporary at the minute. I've got to figure out how I'm going to lay it all out properly once I start filling it full of stuff. For now, it's just sitting there, but back, we still have a bunch of room around the back so we can hang stuff off the back or use the shelves down the bottom to store a bunch of other toolkits and such. So I'm really happy with that, and probably some more cable drums out the back. But last thing to do now, before I can start designing any more of the back, is start filling this thing, figure out how much space we're going to use, and if I've made it too small. This is just about full of wire anyway. May have even ended up with a couple of spare spots, which is awesome. That looks neat. I like it. So the idea of this is now that all my wire is here. If I'm working and I'm working on a car, I can wheel this over to the car that I'm working on, and if I need a green and yellow wire, I can pull my green and yellow wire out, put it on the car, whatever, cut a length, and then I can just give it a snip and job done. And if I need to take the reel to the car, all I need to do is pick it up. All the others remain in place, the others don't get disturbed. I don't have to pull a rod out of the middle to get to the one in the center and then they all fall on the ground and drop or whatever. I can simply just grab the one I need and walk away. The feel that I'm getting from it right now is the best way to make it work is to have the drum actually run from underneath, so wire come out from underneath. It seems to be keeping them in place. I was concerned that maybe the lighter drums, so the ones with less wire in them, might end up pulling out, like this blue and white one here, one of my favorite colors. But it's actually, they're staying in place really, really well. I thought they were going to be a pain, but no. I did have a plan B though, in case this didn't work and they started pulling out as they got light or whatever, and that was to put in a locking rod. This was just going to be a rod, it's just a 12mm dowel that I got from Bunnings, and I was going to slide this across the top like that. That could have slid all the way across the top, locked them all in, and that means if I was pulling these out, there's no way that these can come out because they get stopped. I don't think I'm going to need it, to be honest. They seem to be sitting in place pretty well, even without a locking bar on top. This is going to take me hours. Okay, well, it is now day 3 of building this thing, and that tells me 2 things. One, I really overthink things when it comes to setting stuff out in the shed, and it takes me a lot of time to get stuff done. And 2, it's a lot harder to film by yourself and takes a lot more time when it comes to building something. So to get to this level right now has taken me almost as long as it took me to build the whole mini lathe and mini mill bench out the back. But we have gotten somewhere. So last I left you guys, I was sort of fitting everything out, putting everything where I thought, putting all my supplies where I thought they would go and where they would be useful. And I got it all pretty much sorted and I was pretty happy with it. But then I sort of sat back and looked at it and realized I think I've been going wrong with this thing. So whilst all this is looking really good and I have everything laid out, I realized I very quickly run out of space. So I think what happened was when I was starting to piece this together and putting all the stuff in here that I thought was going to be important to me, I thought about it the wrong way. I started putting in all my terminals and stuff. That's great, that's fantastic. That's what I'm going to be using on the regular, and that's what I'm going to be using when I sit this next to a car to start wiring up a job. I'm going to be using a few everyday basic things. I'm going to be using my wire, that's down here. I'm going to be using my terminals, that's all here, that's easy to get to. I have my cable ties. I'm going to use my cable ties a lot, absolutely. And I have my Nava bits and stuff, but my shrink wrap, where's my shrink wrap going to go? I have no room in the front of this for shrink wrap. I ended up putting my shrink wrap in this drawer here, and as you can see, it's an absolute mess. It just isn't neat. It's just all shoved in there, and even if I tried to make it neat, it always just starts to do that and just turn into a bird's nest. So then I thought, well, maybe I should trim some up and have some in some tote bins so I can grab it quickly and easily when I'm trying to wiring something up. Great, I have no tote bins left. My tote bins are full, and I've got a lot here, but they're full already. And I was thinking, well, how do I fix that? So these tote bins over here, they're obviously full. They're full to the brim, which means that the tote bin itself is being used to its capacity. There's no wasted space. Whereas these ones here, you can see there's a lot of wasted space because look at my eyelets, for example. That's a lot of eyelets. That'll get you through a lot of projects, no doubt. So, you know, I don't necessarily need much more than this on hand at any one time because if I'm going to go through all them, I've done a lot of wiring. But even if I had double the amount of that or triple the amount of that, it still doesn't take up a lot of room. This tote bin still might only be a quarter full, which means there's all this wasted space in the tote bin itself, and it takes up space on the board. So what I figured is maybe I need to actually make the tote bins for those a little bit smaller which is where this comes into play. In the space that this takes up, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 tote bins. 9 tote bins, which means I can only store 9 different items. In that same area, I can have 20 tote bins in place of 9, which means I can store 20 items rather than the 9 that I can store there. I ended up gaining back a few extra tote bins along the way as well too. So now I'm gonna swap all this out. And I totally realize I'm really overthinking this, but I love this sort of thing, I gotta be honest. Oh, look at that. It just clips straight on too. Oh, now we're back to sorting stuff out again. Okay, well, after another couple hours, I think I can finally say that it's done. At least for now, until I start playing with it and realize I want to change a few things around. But overall, I think we've done it. So I went ahead and made the changes I was talking about earlier, and it has made a huge difference to what I'm able to actually store on here. Let me run you through how it looks. So we obviously have our King Chrome drawer unit here. And this is awesome because it has pretty much all the tools that I'm going to need when I'm working on something electrical wise. In this drawer here, I have pretty much anything that's going to be, pliers, cutters. We have our Deutsch crimpers, wire strippers and such, the basic sort of tools. In this one, we have soldering iron. So all my soldering iron, gas and electric. You guys might remember my custom made wire holding tool, 2 pegs and a nail. Absolutely vital when it comes to this sort of stuff. This drawer is like the diagnostics drawer. So below that, I have all my tapes. Shrink wrap in here, which I'm just going to keep for if I have anything that is, I need a long piece of shrink wrap. Below that is all my excess cable that doesn't go on drums. So that's my heavy duty cable, stuff for like batteries, high amperage stuff. So I'm going to leave that all in here along with the cutters to cut it because these are really useful for cutting big, thick battery cable. And lastly, in the drawers, we have conduit. So the braided conduit, which I've been using a lot of lately. And then in this one, our corrugated conduit, which is also really handy. We have all our Deutsch connectors in here, all the heavy duty stuff, which is awesome, really good, because now I can see just how much I have and different styles that I have as well too, including all the pins. The pins live up here. We have those little brass crimpers that I use all the time. Got these from this idea from the Skid Factory. These are my #1 thing to go to now. I tend to stay away from soldering now just because these are so reliable and so easy to work with. Next to that, we have all our shrink wrap. So I've cut some shrink wrap up all the size, and the idea is it's there, it's quick, it's accessible to get to, and it's already cut to about the length that I would normally use when I'm joining 2 wires together. Small size, a little bit bigger than that, and then just a range of bigger sizes. Lastly, down here I have all my cable ties. So just your standard style cable tie, which you use a lot for harnesses and such. Nice, I think it's 100 mil, whatever it is. Next to that, a little bit bigger, a little bit longer. Again, useful for harnesses. These ones here I found have been really useful lately. I've been using them when we were doing the XE especially. So they're a cable tie with an eyelet at the top. And the idea is that you can cable tie your wire together and then you can put a screw in or a nutsert in and hold it against the guard and keep it in place. Really liking them lately. I think you can get these from Tiperformance's website because they're a PAT product. And beside that, we have a similar sort of idea where it's a cable tie with a pushing clip. So you drill a hole in your panel and just push that in and it stays in place. Again, really useful, something we've been using a lot of lately. In this section here, this is the bit that has managed to save us a lot of room. So we have all our Nava style connectors. Our eyelets live in here, and that range in size. So red, blue, and yellow, small, medium, large. All the yellow ones in there, but you can see I'm running empty on a few different colors, which that's what the beauty of this sort of setup is. I can easily see what I'm running low on and order more. Down here we have all our larger style terminals, so the crimp style terminals that you use on battery cables and stuff. We have anywhere starting from 16, 25, 30, and 50, and that just refers to the size of the size of the wire that it's made for. These are all the 8mm holes for 8mm lugs, and these are all the 10mm eyelets for 10mm lugs. Of course, the whole reason why we built this thing, all our wire rolls now are on the bottoms in their own shelves. I really, really like this design. I'm super happy with how it turned out. Dashes and sensors use really lightweight current or lightweight wire, so I know I've got plenty of that, and the heavy duty stuff when it comes to power supplies for cables like thermo fans or fuel pumps and stuff. I know I've got plenty of that as well too, because I can straight away see just how much I've got. So that's the front. Let's have a look at the back. So whereas before the front was where it was at, now the back is pretty much just as organized and as neat as the front as well too, which I'm really happy about because it means that I'm using this space as effectively as I possibly can. It's funny, it kind of almost looks like a J-car shelf. I ended up putting a King Chrome pin board on here. The reason why is when you buy a lot of electrical stuff, obviously it comes in these sort of kits and stuff, or these sort of packaging, which is meant to be hung. Yes, I could take everything out and put them into these tactic boxes, but I actually don't mind keeping electrical stuff in these sort of packages for as long as I possibly can, because these packages actually offer a lot of information sometimes in relation to what the product does or how it needs to be wired up. And in regards to Raceworks products, if I flick it over to the back, there's a product code on the back, which means I can type in the product code on the Raceworks website and it'll tell me everything I need to know. And in some cases that's important because it might tell you your pin positioning and what each pin is supposed to do in regards to what the plug is actually made for. Sometimes that's a sensor, a power supply for something where it is important. Grommet kit, that goes hand in hand with electrical as well too. Full Nava fuse kit, which is good. This is our hydraulic crimper, which is become a massive help to us when it comes to doing battery cables and such lately. In here, we have Deutsch connector kits. So Deutsch connectors, if you don't know, come in, I think, 3 different sizes, and it just depends on what current you're working with. This one here is for smaller currents, whereas this one here is for bigger current. You can tell by the size of the pins. The pins in this are much bigger than that. And the main difference between them is larger plugs, smaller plugs. Sometimes that's handy when it comes to working in cramped areas, but now I can keep them in here in their own shelves. And then besides them, I have a tote bin here where I'm going to keep my dual core or larger wiring drum reels, just because there's no room in the front to keep them. So at the back here is fine, and they can just sit in here. In this section here, this little tactics box, which is absolutely awesome. In here we have a bunch of shrink wrap. This is much larger shrink wrap for larger diameter stuff. Sometimes I use that for wiring looms in their entirety when I've got to go around a whole lot, so I'll keep that as long pieces. I have all my relays now in the back here rather than on the front. I figured they're more useful in the container at the back, and I've sort of separated them depending on what sort of relay they are. This one here I'm keeping for all fuses. And then lastly I have a bunch of just random switches and stuff that I've kept over time. You never know when they're going to be useful. And a bunch of random plugs. Some of these OEM, some not. They're handy to have. You never know when you're going to use them. So I had a little bit of extra room, so I thought I'd keep them in here. But the best thing about this whole thing is, as you can see, there's still shelf space left. I still have space that I can put some more stuff, because although today everything fits in here and that's fantastic, that is a huge achievement, I know that as time goes on and the years go on, I'm going to fill this thing up even more because I'm going to collect more and more stuff, and I need to have provisions to be able to fit all that stuff in the future. So all in all, that was a project that took way longer than I thought it was going to take, probably about 3 times as long as I thought it was going to take. But I guess I underestimated just how much stuff I had. Building it didn't take too long, probably took me about a day, I reckon, realistically. It was actually just organizing everything and getting everything in an organized fashion. Yeah, I'm really, really stoked with it. I really, really am. I can't wait to use it. For instance, we are almost up to working on the electrical on the Tirana soon, so being able to just wheel this next to it and just get to work is just gonna be totally different to what I've ever worked with in the past. I don't know, I think I'm nerding out a little bit about my electrical cart, but hopefully you guys have liked this episode as well too. It was more along the lines of shed infrastructure. This has been something that I've been wanting to do for a very, very long time. Like I said last time, if you want to see more of this sort of stuff, please let me know in the comments whether you enjoyed it or not. And if you want to help support the channel even further, you can head on over to the website, buy a bunch of merch, stickers, t-shirts, hoodies, fender covers, all that sort of stuff. Really goes a long way to helping us do what we do here. So yeah, I guess until we finally get to use it, I will catch you in the next episode. This is taking way longer than anyone should spend on a tool trolley. I'll admit that. And there's way more mess than there should be. What do you think, Buck? Good? Yeah? I can barely tell the difference between you and the paint. Buck, say hi. He's getting bigger and he's becoming more of a terror every day.